Guys, welcome. We're going to start here in about 2 minutes. Great to see so many familiar names. For those that are just joining, we're going to get started here in about 1 minute. We're going to get started here, guys, in like 30 seconds. We got some more people coming in now, and we'll get rolling here shortly. Oh, North Bay, Ontario, another neighbor up north. Another one. All right. All right, guys, we're going to get started. Appreciate everybody joining today. We'll also have this recorded for the folks that weren't able to join live. The purpose, or let me actually back up before I even go into the purpose of today's session. For those of you who don't know April Martz, I'd like to introduce April. She is our product manager at Hopskip, kind of like running the day-to-day operations of the product. I think many of you know her, but she's going to be a frequent host on these webinars that we plan to do on some kind of reoccurring basis, probably monthly. And the purpose of today's webinar is to really provide some of our existing planner customers an overview of the refreshed Hopskip user interface and show you some new features that you might not necessarily be aware of, and kind of where they're located, how they work, and why we modified them. So we want today's session to be totally interactive, collaborative. If you have questions as we're going through the new user interface, please feel free to throw them in the chat. If we can't answer them live, we'll make sure that we either have another session focused on those, or we do a follow-up and answer them accordingly. So what we're going to cover is going to be primarily focused on walking you through the actual platform. So I'm going to share my screen, and April and I are going to go through, like I mentioned, the new user interface, where to find certain things, and some new features that you might not be aware of. And then from there, we want it to be interactive. So like I mentioned, if you have questions or concerns with anything, you're learning or you're seeing, throw them out and let's try and address them, because we know we've had one-on-ones with many of you since we've launched the new UI, but we know not everyone. So there might be some things that you're seeing for the first time. April, anything you want to add before we jump into the demo?
No, I think that's a good overview. Hi, everybody. So happy to have you all here today.
Agreed. All right. Give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Everyone see? Cool. So I know many of you, just from looking at the names and knowing your accounts well, that you've already been in the new user interface and have been sourcing RFPs since we've launched, which was a couple months or so ago, but some of you might not have seen it. So let's take a step back before we even start walking through the platform and provide some context on why we updated the user interface. And the main reason is really one, let me actually back up one more step. Ultimately, the main reason is to create a better user experience for you, the end user. We wanted to do this to also help modernize the platform and also be able to provide our end users easier ways to do certain things in the platform. So if, like I mentioned, as you're getting into the weeds of the new user interface and you're finding things are actually harder to do, we want to hear that too. But ultimately, the goal is to make it a better experience for you and the hotels and your industry contacts. All right. So, RFP dashboard. I know you're all very familiar with what this is. This is like your command center, your one-page snapshot for all the different RFPs you're currently managing for your organization or for your clients. Some of the changes on here, as you can see, are metrics at the top. You have recent activity to the right, and it still has the same concept of having a Kanban board to be able to measure or view which stages your RFP is in the sourcing process. You can still switch between a card view or a table view. You can now also download your RFP data right from the dashboard. And for those of you who might be on teams and are managing other planners across your team that are managing RFPs, you can also filter by RFP owner by clicking that filter button right there. All right, before we jump into the RFP process, I quickly just want to show you what's changed in your planner toolbox, because the items and capabilities of the planner toolbox are still the same, but it looks a little different. And for those of you who might not be familiar with what the planner toolbox is, it's a set of tools that allows you as the planner to be able to source more efficiently, more effectively, and stay more organized throughout the process. So you'll notice in the new user interface, the different sections of the toolbox are now in horizontal tabs across the top. They used to be vertical, but same concept with your questions, your concessions, clauses, decline reasons. Customize them, save them once, set them up to always include. Your RFP templates are still here as well. So if you have any recurring events that you want to turn into a template, this is where those would live. Your industry contacts are still in your toolbox. They're broken out now between two different tabs, so that your industry contacts tab is your contacts tab for your DMOs, your NSOs, your sales affiliates. And then your hotel contacts tab is meant for your hotel property level contacts. So just like before, save them, add them once, and then you can set them up to automatically be included in the RFP, in all new RFPs, or depending on their affiliation, they'll be included based on the hotel chain or brand that you select. Lastly, collections and notes, still the same. We haven't made much changes here. You'll be able to view your lists of hotels, or AKA collections, by the name, or you can view by the hotels within those lists. You could still create lists from this section, and then you can also take notes, as you know, on any property. This is where you'd be able to view those notes. Anything, April, you want to call out that I might have missed here?
Not necessarily. I think we'll get into the differences a little bit more between industry contacts and hotel contacts when we get to the RFP builder. But I do just want everyone to keep in mind, those are two different types of contacts in Hopskip, and they're both really important to the process. But we'll talk about how those are different in a few minutes.
Awesome. And you know what? We actually have a poll administered right now as well. And it looks like some folks have already started to respond. How do you currently loop in contacts during your RFP process? Looks like I manually add them to an individual RFP in Hopskip. Okay, good for us to know, because we're thinking about and have design capabilities to be able to automatically add them. So we'll make sure we cover that in more detail to April's point when we get to that section. All right. They're automatically included as Hopskip contacts. Okay, so we got some folks that are taking that feature and putting it in use, and it looks like still the majority as I manually add them. All right, we're going to continue with the demo. We're going to jump into the creating of the RFP process. So just like before, you can create an RFP right from the dashboard. A little bit different though in the new user interface, where you're going to have a side panel pop up instead of a pop up. just like before, you would put in an RFP name. You have the option to create an RFP from a blank RFP, creating new, or from a template. If you have a template saved in your toolbox, as you know, you would just select which template, just like in the legacy app. And then from there, you're able to further specify which sections from that template you want to pull over into your new RFP. For the sake of this demo, though, let's say creating new. Let's put a name to this RFP. I'm going to click create. And now we're brought into a blank request. So one of the biggest differences from like a layout standpoint in the new user interface versus the old is RFP, the sections of the RFP, what we call tabs, are now, when you're building the RFP, are laid out horizontally versus before they were vertically. So still every section of the RFP is included, general, which is where you're going to put some high level information around the group and event type, the response due date, decision date. This is also where you would put in the actual dates you're requesting for proposals. So just like before, you're able to add as many or request proposals for as many dates as you like. You can further specify if you want to allow hotels to suggest alternate dates. And then you could also indicate which pattern you're accepting those alternate dates in. So I won't go through every single button here, but this is still the same functionality, just looks a little different than before. Actually, for the room blocks tab, I probably should just populate this really quick. Give me a second here. When you get to the room blocks tab, slightly different from the old user interface. I think everyone's already figured this out. You're going to click add room block. That's going to provide you with the ability to add details of that block. You're able to specify, just like before, different room types, count of rooms. You can also specify a budget, and just like before, you would also specify a payment method. The event space tab, or let me actually pause here for a second just to make sure there's not any questions in the chat. All right, cool. The event space tab, same as before. This is where you're going to lay out your event space request. So as you know, Hopskip organizes your event space request by day. I'm going to click add room to day one. We're going to put a function for this room. We'll say this is our general session. Sorry, I've been having typing challenges lately. We're going to say preferred layout is conference room layout, needs to hold 100 people. As you know, Hopskip will estimate the square footage needed based on the room layout, number of people for that room. I can add a food and beverage request by clicking on the F&B tab up top. Same as before, you can specify the meal type needed, number of people needed. You can add any comments. And then lastly, you're also able to provide notes for this specific meeting room. And just like before, here's where you would share any attachments. I click save, and now that room's added. So one of the things on Hopskip is you can create complex agendas in a really efficient way. From here, let's say I need this room for all 3 days of my event. Instead of copying it line by line, I just select the room and click copy to all following days, and boom, it's now built. You'll notice too, these icons will be green depending on if you provided that supplemental information when adding the room, right? So I only added food and beverage details to this specific meeting room. That's why this is green. All right. The contract terms tab, very similar as before, just looks a little bit different. You're still going to be specifying things like the reservation method, the payment method. One of the actually changes here is you only have to select, if it's the same payment method for AV, F&B, and meeting space, you can just select one and then click apply to all, and that will apply that payment method to the others. You can see here, you have the ability to specify cutoff dates. So you can allow hotels to, you can allow or not allow hotels to propose a cutoff date, and same with attrition. Contract signer information. This is information, as you know, you're providing the hotels to be able to assign the RFP. We don't share the name of the contract signer, title, really only at this point in time, city and state. And that's purely because a lot of sales teams on the hotel side will assign leads based on that location. One thing too, I'll just call out here, this is very minute, but in your organization profile on Hopskip, you have the ability to provide a company overview, a description of your company as a planner. You can also include that description in your RFPs if you want to share that information, of course, by just clicking on this toggle. The contract clause section of the RFP, same as before. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is where you're able to request contract language to be included in the agreement. This planner already has this clause automatically included because she set up her toolbox accordingly to always include my function space contract clause in all new RFPs. Same concept with questions. So questions tab just looks a little different, but does the same as before. This planner already has these 4 concessions. These 4 questions already being asked or noted in her RFP because she set up her toolbox to do so. Same concept with concessions, already set up in this planner's toolbox to always request these 7 concessions. So this planner doesn't even need to touch any of these items unless they want to edit or delete any. They can by just clicking the trash can or the edit button. Program info. So this is where, just like before, you're adding supplemental information to the RFP, everything around the group profile, event profile, key success factors, deal breakers, and any program history. One of the things that we'll be introducing, this does not exist today, but in the future it will, the ability to automatically add in your program history for reoccurring programs. But if you have a template, you can essentially build those in once and then use that and build upon that for upcoming years. That's how planners today use that workaround. And then lastly, just like before, you have the ability to share and upload attachments. These will be shared with the hotel. They'll be able to be downloaded and viewed by the hotel. All right, I am going to continue going through the demo unless, April, anything you want me to double click into that I might have skipped over?
Not necessarily. I will just add that if you go back to the program info tab for a second, Sean, I think that sometimes these text boxes may get overlooked or skipped over. And I think, we really want to make sure that planners are aware of these different areas for information, because what we've heard from hotels is that hotels use this information to respond a lot more quickly. So we encourage you just to make sure you're putting a couple of sentences and at least a couple of these boxes just to expedite some responses from them.
Great. Yeah, great call out. That's a really good call out for multiple reasons. Hotels tell us like that really helps them create competitive proposals. So ultimately, by providing that information, to April's point, is going to end up helping you. Looks like we have couple questions. If I upload my meeting space via Excel, where do you do that in the new platform now? So that's a great question, Latika. Today, the best way to get your meeting space imported is to provide it to Hopskip. To be completely transparent, we're still working through and ultimately will have a self-serve import for both meeting space and RFP templates, but with the new user interface, we're still working through a few kinks. So anyone who needs or is trying to get their meeting space imported for an RFP, just reach out to support, which I think everyone knows how to do by clicking this little green circle. And then another question, like template clauses with language we could possibly use. In the old interface, I thought there was an area for resources like template clauses with language we could possibly use to add to our RFPs. Does that exist? It's another great question, interesting question. So we never had available contract clauses or concessions as templates. That's something, however, we have been asked about quite a lot over the years, and something that we've started to have some discussions internally, and definitely something that's feasible in the future. Today doesn't exist. What I think you might be thinking of is, I'm going to kind of jump back into the toolbox. You have the ability to create RFP templates, which is a kind of like a collection of RFP elements. So some planners now, not to like muddy the waters even more, will upload a contract clause template knowing that they might need to adjust it per RFP, but that's slightly, or that is different than what I think the question was asking, which was, does Hopskip have any kind of out of the box or canned templates for clauses? All right, I'm going to jump back to the RFP process so we can be cognizant of time here. Let me locate this. So I'm back into the RFP. I'm going to just go down vertically these tabs. Hotel preferences tab, I just want to make sure everyone knows what this is meant for. This is meant for you to provide extra detail around your preferences for the specific hotel that you're looking to host the event. If you don't handpick hotels from the search, which is the add hotels tab, you need to provide this information because that's the information your industry contacts, your NSOs, your DMOs are going to use to suggest hotels. In the future, so let me, before I get to add hotels, give you guys a quick background or insight into what we're doing today behind the scenes. We're completely revamping and investing in like really beefing up our hotel search experience. So in the future, I say that because the preferences on the hotel preferences tab might be morphed into the add hotels experience, and it's going to look different, feel different, but be a lot better in the upcoming weeks/months. Today, though, how you would go about searching for hotels, similar to how you're doing it today or how you were doing it yesterday on Legacy. I would search for city, landmark, location, hotel name, address, pretty much like whatever you would type into Google. I'm going to see results. Your filters for the hotels are in a different location, right? So if I click this filters button, I'm then seeing hotels, or excuse me, I'm then seeing filters on the right-hand side of my screen. I could filter on majority of the same items that you could in the Legacy app. You'll see now like hotel type is available, chain and brand. We're going to be introducing, as we revamp the search experience, additional filters. So now is a really good time if you're finding filters missing or lacking in Hopskip to please reach out to April or I and let us know what that gap is, because we're designing the new search as we speak. I'm going to add a few hotels to my RFP by clicking add, just like before. Just like before, I can get to the back of the base, or excuse me, I can get to the hotel details by just clicking on the card. I can see additional information about the property, additional photos, rooms and event space summary, description of the property, closest airports, and then meeting space specifications. Gonna go back. Actually, let me jump back into here. One of the other things I'll quickly call out is this is where you can take notes on a property, which is when I was showing you earlier in your planner toolbox where you would access those notes. This is also where you could add them to a collection or a hotel list by clicking that little collection link. All right. I am going to keep it moving here. I'm going to add a few more hotels. And now we're going to get to our Manage Contacts tab, which is something that I think is going to look different and feel different to a lot of you if you haven't used it before. I'll pass it over to April to kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So as Sean said, this is the Manage Contacts tab within the RFP Builder. And the main goal of this page is to make sure that you all, as planners, feel completely in control of who is getting an RFP. With the new interface, we wanted to make sure that this page would encompass all types of contacts for an RFP, including on property hotel contacts, as well as supporting industry contacts. In Hopskip, supporting industry contacts are your sales affiliates, your NSO GSOs, and your DMO CBBs, while hoteliers are the ones building and submitting the proposals back for RFPs. These other contacts, as you all know, can help facilitate that process and help secure the bookings. In the old app experience, if you'll remember, hotel contacts and supporting industry contacts were split across a couple of different pages and different tables. And we heard from our planners, from all of you, that it was difficult to keep track and you felt like maybe some info was falling through the cracks, which obviously isn't great. So this was our way of really remedying that. The default view of this table is by industry contacts, but you can also toggle to the hotel view, which we'll cover more in just a minute. Both views show you a breakdown of which contacts are set up to support which hotels for an RFP, just organized in two different ways. As Sean pointed out in the planner toolbox, you can save different types of contacts to your toolbox and set them up to be included automatically on your RFPs based on what they're assigned to. If you would like some help getting those contacts set up or assigned to the right organizations, reach out to support team. We're happy to make sure that you have the right guidance you need when adding those saved contacts. So in the industry contact view, Sean, if you X out of that for a second, in the industry contact view, this is going to show you the name and email and company for a supporting contact, as well as which hotels they're assigned to support for this RFP. And you can click that pencil icon like Sean's doing to check or uncheck hotels that you want that person to support. This list of hotels pulls straight from the properties you added on the Add Hotels tab. To add a supporting industry contact, you're going to click that Add button in the top right, and you can choose, like Sean's showing here, whether you want to add an existing saved contact from your toolbox or a brand new contact. To add from your toolbox, you'll click that option and you'll see a side window pop open. And this is where you can simply check off an existing contact and then press Add. Otherwise, if you want to add a brand new contact, you're going to press that button again and press Add New. And you'll see a different side window where you'll start with the contact's email and then the details. And then you can choose to personalize the message that this new contact will receive with the RFP. And that's basically just a way for you to say, like, hey, Sean, it's me, April. I'm using this awesome system called Hopskip to submit my RFPs. And I want to make sure I keep all of my RFP activity on the Hopskip app. That's just an extra way for you to kind of indicate to the contact you add here where this message is coming from.
Cool.
Perfect. And then below that, you can choose whether or not, back in that Add New for just a sec, Sean, just want to point a couple things out there.
Sorry, you want me to go back?
Yeah, go to Add New and then scroll to the bottom. Perfect, thank you. So these two toggles at the bottom just is where you can choose whether or not you want to save this contact to your planner toolbox, or if you just want to save this contact with a single RFP, and then like you saw Sean do a second ago, then you can add the contact there. Once you're back on the table, you can make sure each contact is supporting the hotels that you want them to. You can indicate if each contact is going to be able to suggest other hotels for the RFP once they've received it, like Sean is showing right now. And then, of course, you can also remove someone from receiving the RFP. All right, so now, yep, go ahead and toggle over. So going over to the hotels view of this table, here's where you can see the hotel name, location, and then which chain and sales affiliate they're supported by, if applicable. And then again, same info, just different view. So you have a column where you can review the supporting contacts by clicking the pencil icon here. And again, this is just a different version of what we saw on the table. Once you've added these contacts to support a hotel, a lot of you have probably seen these alerts in the app. Again, we heard from a lot of planners that there was some information, maybe some overlap, and missing things fall through the cracks. So once you've added a contact for a hotel here, if you have multiple affiliate companies assigned to support that hotel, you'll receive an alert, as well as if you have saved NSO, GSO supporting contacts in your toolbox that are not currently added for that same brand, Hopskip is going to let you know. That is just to make sure that as planners, again, you don't unintentionally have two affiliates on the same hotel for the same RFP, and also to make sure that if you want an NSO or GSO to be included for a Marriott or a Hilton, that we make sure that you know that you still need to take that extra step.
And what April's describing here is, like, imagine if this hotel was also represented by Alhai, that's where you would see that overlapping, like, notification. right? So you would get warned of that, which didn't exist in the old app.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So next to the supporting contacts column here is where you have your hotel contacts column for each property. And this is where you can review those on property hotel contacts. This will open a side window where you can see a badge as well, which indicates whether a contact has come from your saved planner toolbox or if that contact was added by the hotelier themselves in Hopskip. So in this case, these are all hotel added, which means that this hotelier added these team members to support this property in Hopskip. Quick note, from time to time, some of you have probably seen this, but from time to time, you may see a message that says, Hopskip does not currently have a saved contact for a hotel. That is no cause for alarm, and you're still completely able to submit the RFP. All that means, if you see that message, is that for that hotel, our Hopskip RFP support team will act as a messenger, and we'll just make sure that we reach out to the hotel directly for the right contact person and make sure the person gets the RFP. So no matter which hotel contacts are showing up here for you when you go to submit an RFP, just trust the RFP will get to the right hotels. You can also create a brand new hotel contact here. If you go, to hotel view and then viewer edit. So same process as industry contact. If you want to add a brand new on-property hotel contact, you can enter their name and email, as well as that personalized message. And then once you've done that, back on the manage contacts table, you can check and confirm those once again. And again, like I said before, this whole table and design is really just meant to give planners complete control and confidence in who will be receiving the RFPs. And Sean, I'll let you take it back over for what happens next.
Cool. Before we keep going, it sounds like we got a couple questions that popped up, which is great. From the attendees, looks like some of them are getting answered already. Are the notes on a hotel only for ourselves, or is it a collective from everyone on Hopskip? It's a great question, Giselle. The notes are internal only, so they will only be viewable by either you or your teammates, depending on your preference. The only notes that get shared with the hotel, just to make sure everyone is aware, are notes that you explicitly want shared with the hotel. And that would be in the form of a section of the RFP that's explicitly going to that property, or you'll get asked, if you do a review or rating on a hotel, you'll get asked by Hopskip, do you want to share this with the hotel privately or just still keep it internal? But we'll always prompt you. You'll always be aware before anything gets shared with hotels. Notes by default are not. Okay, let's see. Is there another question? I'm going to be cognizant of everyone's time. How are you showing the hotels when you search? Which ones show first, and what order are you following to show? Okay, great question. So how hotels actually get displayed in search results. Let me go to search. It is one, based on the location that you enter into Hopskip, and two, it is based on, so let's say you go to you're searching a specific location, right? We're looking at those hotels that are closest to that location. From there, the specific order of those hotels, if they're all the same distance from the location searched, are going to be actually ranked or ordered based upon hotel profile completeness versus like a pay to play, like you might be familiar with some of the other players out there. Reason why we do it that way is because we do not, and we're very cognizant on making sure we do not dilute our search experience for planners. We've heard time and time again over the years that it's not fun and it's not a great experience when you're searching for hotels in a specific city or location and hotels from a neighboring city appear on the first row because they pay the highest amount. You're not going to find that on Hopskip. All right, let's see. Did I get everyone? Yeah. All right.
And I think also shout out to Kate for jumping in and answering some of those questions as well. Thank you, Kate.
I was wondering if it was that you or Kate. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's keep it moving. So we've gone through kind of the meat and potatoes of building the RFP. Everyone I'm assuming knows how to send the RFP. Same kind of concept on the send RFP tab. This is your summary of the request, who it's going to, key dates. You fill in all the information. You're going to click the send RFP button, and boom, same process as before. Hotels are starting to receive email notifications from Hopskip that they have an RFP from you. It will mention your company name. It will mention the RFP name, the RFP code, and we'll have a button in that email that takes the hotelier right back to Hopskip to begin reviewing and responding to your request. As you know, you'll get notification emails at this point in time every time that a hotel begins reviewing or responding to your request. You'll land on the proposal tracker. So we've sent the RFP, hotels are beginning to review and respond. We're starting to get proposals. You'll land on your proposal tracker to be able to track the response status across all your hotels. You'll be able to see details, which is a new feature compared to the old app, of timeline of your activity of the entire RFP from creating it through that given moment that you click on the timeline button. Same concept. I won't spend a lot of time here as before. You can get into your proposal details by just clicking the view proposal button. You'll jump into the details of that hotel's proposal. You'll see the tabs, the different sections of the proposal in tabs on the top. You'll have an overview tab, which is where you'll also be able to see detailed timeline of activity. Your financials tab, same as before, you're able to estimate total cost. You'll see this is actually a new tab that we're not going to go into detail today, but this will be coming out in very, very soon, where you'll be able to see financials and details of your room block that was proposed by this property. So, and before, you couldn't really see the level of detail with like multiple room types per day. Now on Hopskip, you'll be able to see that detail in proposals, and you'll also be able to see the financials that are associated with those. Meeting space tab, same as before. This is where you're seeing your proposed space by this property. Your questions tab is where you're going to see the answers to those questions. Concessions tab is where you're able to see whether or not the concessions that were requested were approved or declined. Your contracts tab is where you'll find your contract clauses that you requested to have included in the agreement, whether they were acknowledged by the property. And attachments tab is where you'll find any uploaded documents or attachments shared by the hotel to you. You'll have the ability as well to take proposal notes, which I want to call out because these are different than the notes that we were looking at earlier when we were doing the search process. These notes are specific to the proposal and will be used in exportable reports and presentations. The notes that we were looking at in the search process are more like general notes around the property itself. So you can access these notes by clicking proposal notes button in the top right. And then you can also download the proposal to PDF just like before. And you can shortlist any proposal just like before by clicking the add to shortlist button. April, anything you want to add to there that I might have missed? No? Cool. All right.
So do we have a poll? Are we still good with the polls? I know we had a couple more polls we were going to send out, but we might be okay on those.
Yeah, that's a good call. I completely forgot about that. Let's actually do a poll if we have one, because I could use a break here. Let's get the next one sent out. What is your favorite Hopskip tool? This will actually really help us as well, guys, with prioritizing feature enhancements. So if you could take a second and give us your honest answer. Great. I see some people responding. Looks like automated PowerPoint/reports are number one. RFP dashboard and the creation process, number two. It doesn't surprise me that hotel search is not yet favored. Something that will change drastically, though, as I mentioned, in the upcoming months. So I'm excited to ask that poll question again by maybe the end of the year. All right. Looks like RFP dashboard is actually number It's tied again with RFP creation. All right, we're going to keep moving for the sake of time. I'm not going to spend much time on the proposal dashboard because it's pretty much the same. Again, guys, this is where you're able to estimate total. You're able to, one, look at your total estimated cost across all proposals and then dive into the details of any specific proposal's financials. One thing I will call out, if you do have multiple date ranges, right, in the old app, you would have to click on the date range at the top to filter. Here, you can filter the table by just selecting the dates filter. You can also view the hotel's financials by shortlist as well. Chat messaging, same as before. This is an area that we're making improvements on, though, in the background as we speak. But this is where you're able to message in real time, back and forth with any of your RFP contacts. That could be a hotel or NSO, GSO, DMO. All right, let's go to the report section, which I know seems to be a fan favorite. We're going to ask another poll, though, before I hand it over to April to walk through some of the new reports that we've just released. Which new feature would you find most value? Oh, is that open? I can't tell if that poll is launched. We're going to launch this poll if it's not launched at the current moment. Which new feature would you find most valuable out of the features that we're displaying on the screen right now? And I'll kind of walk you through what they mean for the ones that aren't obvious. Client profiles is where you're able to save certain information on a given client to a client in Hopskip. The meeting request form is where you would be able to take in RFP requirements from a stakeholder that would then allow you to be able to ingest into an RFP on Hopskip, just like you would create an RFP today. The AI proposal match tool would essentially analyze your RFP and analyze the proposal submitted and match the best ones or the closest match to your specific requirements. And then I think pretty much the rest are self-explanatory. Besides destination overview, I'll just hit on that. That is the ability to get an overview of a specific market or destination, like prior to even starting to receive proposals or starting to engage a DMO. It would give you kind of a snapshot of that location, and it would allow you to then be able to compare location by location, just like you would be able to compare hotels today. And then planner review system looks like that's self-explanatory. You have the ability to provide reviews. And it looks like the AI match tool is wow, that's surprising. Good to know that. And the meeting request form is number 2. Cool. Thank you guys for those that have participated. And let's jump back into the walkthrough. We're pretty much at the tail end. April, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, just to summarize this page again. So it sounds like most of you are familiar and love this page, which we love it too, and we love that you love it, and we're always trying to make it more valuable. But for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar, so once you start receiving proposals back from hotels for an RFP, you can tap into these auto-generated RFP reports in Hopskip. Now, as Sean's going to scroll, there are, of course, several different downloadable reports here. The most popular and probably the most highly used reports are going to be the proposal comparison report, the presentation tool, and then at the very bottom, we have a new report that was requested by several of you, which is the proposal response status report, just to get a quicker glance of hotels and their current activity on the proposal response. So Sean's going to download a couple of these and just walk you through what those might look like, a real life example for an RFP.
Cool. All right. I'm going to just pop open this one quickly because I think everyone's familiar with the proposal comparison report, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is a report that seems to be a fan favorite of Hopskip planners. It's essentially a side-by-side comparison. Oops, give me a sec. side-by-side comparison of all the different proposals that you want included in the report, which we can cover as well, of specifying which hotels proposals you want included in the report data. But this planner, as you can see, downloaded the report as is. It's going to be key data points from each proposal side by side, everything from property level information, contact information, and proposal data points information side by side. So you'll see rates inclusive and exclusive of taxes and fees, whether or not the meeting space is on hold. If you requested multiple date ranges, you'll see that information for each date range requested. The different tabs on the bottom of the file, you'll see proposal decline. That's any proposals you declined. Any hotels that didn't respond will be on the no response tab. Any hotels that turned down the opportunity to bid on your RFP will be found here with the turn down reasons side by side. All right. Next report we'll quickly cover is the PowerPoint. So this is something we know planners today seem to really like. This is something too in the future we're gonna have enhanced greatly. We're working on this behind the scenes. So the version I'm showing you right now isn't necessarily available yet to the public, but I think it makes sense to show today versus the old one because this version is going to be coming out very, very soon. So today, what the presentation PowerPoint is, it is a summary of your proposals in a presentation format with a one-slide summary of the property and a one-slide summary of the proposal. Now with version 2 of this, it's a little bit more beefed up, all based on your feedback. So you'll have the ability to brand these just like you can today. You'll be able to specify the colors, the logo, usage, etc. You're also in the very near future going to have the ability to further customize this before downloading. But some of the new content that we're adding into the version 2 of this feature is additional detail on the request overview. You'll also have a sourcing summary slide where you'll be able to provide a summary of your sourcing activity. You're going to also have a shortlisted property slide, which is where that shortlist feature that I showed you earlier comes into play. Any properties that you decline or any proposals you decline or see unfit, you'll have the ability to have listed here, which will then flow into the individual hotel proposal slides. So you'll have a cover slide for each hotel that submitted a proposal. You'll have a property overview slide with property level information, things like, you know, the count of guest rooms, the year it was built, when it was last renovated, etc. And then you'll have a one-slide summary of the proposal, inclusive of rates and taxes and fees. And then a pros and cons slide that's going to take in those proposal detailed notes and provide you with the ability to have pros and cons listed out in this specific slide for this given proposal. And then it will repeat for every single proposal or hotel that you want included. So in order to specify the hotels or proposals that you want included today, you would do it via the shortlist feature. And then from there, if I had a shortlist built, I would just select which shortlist I want to include. And then when I download the reports, only those shortlisted proposals will be included. All right. Any questions there? Anything, April, that you wanted to add that I might have missed?
No, that was a good overview.
Cool. Last report we'll cover here. It's actually a newer report that we just recently launched, I think in the last couple of weeks, really. But let me back up. What it's called is the proposal response status report. It's going to be really like a table of the hotels and their response status. It's going to list some additional details like location. It's going to list the dates that they submitted for, if they did submit, and then if they did decline, and what we consider a response on Hopskip, I should start there, either a proposal submitted or decline with a reason for the decline submitted. So you'll see the decline reason to the right, and that's pretty much it. It's very simple by design. Planners have been asking for us for this for a while, so we built it. Any questions there? It looks like we got some chats. the RFP proposal comparison is a lifesaver. Thank you, Latika. We're glad to hear that. That's also another report too. We're going to be further enhancing over the upcoming months as well, and there'll be some pieces of that report that we're actually going to be bringing into the app too. So it should only get better. All right, I think we are pretty much good here. We're not going to have time to go through all these reports, but just to make sure everyone knows what exists, I'll quickly just hit on a few. Proposal Financials is a report that I don't think a lot of people know is available. And what that report does, so this is this guy, what that report does is it breaks down your total estimated cost by line item, by cost, and provides you with the ability to essentially follow the math to see all of these different costs, how they add up or sum up to make your total projected spend. So that's a report that I would definitely highly recommend you take a look at if you haven't used today. And then another report that I'm always surprised people don't know exists is your meeting space proposals. So you have the ability today to download your meeting agenda, right? And it would be in Excel format. It would pretty much be a replica of what is on your event space tab that you filled out when creating the RFP, right? Like pretty much this. But then you get proposals from all the hotels that are assigning meeting space rooms from their property with the room names, dimensions, capacity, the layouts, all that good stuff, which is packaged up in a report that we call the meeting space proposals report that will list by proposal all the different meeting space assignments. So if you haven't taken a look at that before, I would recommend doing that as well. Lastly, another dashboard that people don't, I always find that it's surprising when people don't know exists, is your cost savings. So you've selected a property. At this point in time, you're able to access this dashboard, which we call the cost savings dashboard. How cost savings are derived or calculated at Hopskip, think of it as like two main inputs. The first is any concessions that have a dollar value that were approved by the property would go into that equation. And the second big piece to that is any savings you were able to achieve through negotiations from proposed to contracted rates. And how, you're probably wondering, how does Hopskip know what my contracted rates are? Well, the short answer is today we don't unless you tell us. And how you would do that is by clicking this Edit Rate button. You're then brought into a table view of all the different rates that make up that total projected cost. You as the planner always have final control on Hopskip and have the ability to update the rates that you were able to unlock through your expert negotiations and or the count of rooms if those did change that you were able to agree upon with the property. And that's what would form this guy. Questions here? Oh, great to hear, Glenn. Cool. Well, April, before I go on my spiel, anything you wanted to call out that I might have missed?
I just want to highlight the question from you, Latika, which is a really important one, which is if you want to do a deeper dive into how best to understand and utilize the data and metrics in the platform, who's best to do that with? I mean, the short answer is any of us, but I would say always start with our support team. Our support team and our support chat is monitored by professionals, Hopskip professionals, as well as a lot of us who are just kind of keeping an eye on things. And so, you know, if you are looking for some best practices or specific fields that you really want to make sure that you're maximizing in the system, support is the best place to start with that. And then we're all happy to make sure that you have all the tools you need to leverage those metrics and leverage things like cost savings the best way you can.
And Latika, to piggyback on April's point, what support will do is, you know, if you're looking for, when you say deep dive, like a one-on-one session as well, support will help be able to coordinate that to get you linked up with our team to do that if that's what you want. Was there anything else? It looks like, oh, all the questions were answered. I think it is. Cool. Well, guys, we are 55 minutes into the 60 minutes we scheduled. So, of course, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Like I said, this was the first of many kind of product demos, educations that we're going to be hosting over for the course of the remaining course of this year, but for sure next year as we launch and roll out some of the features I mentioned earlier. So please feel free to, come to these sessions with your questions kind of already noted, or ask them live like we did today. But you also hopefully know you have a clear line to us at any point. You don't have to wait until these sessions are scheduled. As April mentioned, fastest, quickest way to get support from Hopskip is reaching out through this little button right here. If the support person will always be there 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But if the support person can't answer your question live, or if you're looking for a deeper dive, they'll get you coordinated with someone from our team who would be happy to, do another one of these or do a deep dive on a specific feature, etc. We, as you guys all know, really value your feedback, and that's what kind of sets the direction for our product roadmap. So please don't be a stranger there. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody's time today. Engagement has been great. So great to see so many familiar names, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you guys have done for Hopskip over the years. We're only getting stronger. We're only getting better, and 26 is going to be a big year for all of us. And a lot of that is based upon your input. So thank you, and we'll see you at the next one.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody. Great to see you all.
All right, guys, take care.